So, you said you guys have been doing research for, was it 10 years, what you said? Around 10, or been part of that?
Yeah, with different adjuvants for sure, or yeah, I'd say probably about 10 years, yeah.
So, I guess throughout those 10 years, has there been any kind of specific breakthrough or something you guys have kind of successfully, like, I know you guys accomplish a lot of stuff every year, but something that sticks out, like, hey, this was a great piece of data or info that we just figured out from running these trials?
So there's two products that we have found. Don't know what, at least I don't know. I'm not a chemist. No idea why it works. One's made out of seaweed. One's made out of shrimp shells, I believe. One's for corn. One's for beans. Has always given a positive ROI. No idea why it works. No idea what it does. But especially with these enlist beans, the stuff called Bisher or Tridactor, for whatever reason, I think even though they're enlist beans, when you spray enlist on them, they still want to pucker a little bit. For some reason, this stuff doesn't allow the puckering, so it can stay a darker green and continue to grow.
Oh, cool.
But I don't know why.
So the biggest things that you've successfully found products that repeatedly show positive results.
Yes. And I think, I don't know if we would have completely known that going into this, because so much of it is still weather variant. But after 7 years, you get a pretty good widespread different weather patterns.
Absolutely.
And for it to still have a positive ROI every single year. Now, sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more, but to still be there.
It's averaging,
Yeah, is pretty impressive. And there's not that many products that do that. There's some that'll have a massive increase one year and the next year not. But why is that? Does it need to have the perfect growing season for the stuff to work as well as it does or not?
Mm-hmm. Well, you can drop, let's go to the major category, fungicide. You can drop fungicide into that category. When it pays, it does pay.
Exactly.
So if you're the guy that doesn't have it, the degradation to the crop, you can't afford to not do it in a lot of cases. I've heard 25 to 35 to 50 bushel swings.
Right.
And stay, in tight years.
It will almost always pay for itself. One way or the other, it will almost always pay for itself. You always, at least on corn, you must always have to put a fungicide on. And now we're trying to find the best one.
And timing.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of studies now going into a split application as far as the timings go and stuff, trying to, instead of just have that 10 to 14 day window, and we're trying to guess that exact window, now let's spread this out to maybe a 20-day window.
Right. Maybe get it at V5, put something on there, and then again after tassel to really let it, it might be two different products that work better. It doesn't have to be the same product, just.
Which that kind of brings up an interesting topic. As in, per farmer, where do you draw that line? Are you wanting to get the best yield, or are you going for margin?
I think it goes hand in hand.
Hand in hand.
Because you're going to get a return on that fungicide, why would you not put it on there? Especially if you're going to get a bigger margin. Mm-hmm. So therefore, you're getting best of both worlds, in my opinion.
So is that practice specific, though? And when I say practice specific, and this question, is stemmed from, do you think farming is yield driven or margin driven, right? But does each pass across the field have a different focus? And can it have that?
I think it should. Because, you're going out there at one point, spray for weeds. So why not go ahead and throw one of those V5 applications in there? You're already going across the field. If you can take away an extra pass later, do it now, especially if there's a product that shows that. And then whether it's plane or drone or whatever, do something over the top later. Yeah. Because for sure you're going two pass. You're going to put a residual down, hopefully. And then you're going to go, and there's still going to be breakthroughs. So you're going to have to spray the crop again at some point. So for sure you're doing another pass at some point. So you might as well throw something in there that's going to help the crop out while you're at it.
So I guess just for maybe some of the people may listen that may not understand the concept or the difference between a yield-driven or a margin-driven end result outcome, right? Can you briefly explain, and I'm not seeing technicalities, but what's your how can that be possible? How can you have two different
So with a
options?
yield driven, you're probably going off your APH, which is what you have to base your
What,
numbers off.
APH,
Anyways.
okay.
Average per acre.
Average per acre, basically that's the county average
Last 10 years.
over the last 10 years of what the county average has done for corn and for soybeans.
Right. And you have that based on your own farm as well.
And Decatur County, do you know what Decatur County is by any chance?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Let's guess it at 175.
175.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm
On
guessing
corn,
from there.
175 bushels on corn.
Yep.
And beans is probably going to be somewhere around 55, 57-ish.
Probably somewhere around there. Yeah.
Probably.
So you go into the year, you have to base your numbers with what you can, fertilizer, all your costs have to
Got
be
to
based
set
on
a
that
fix somewhere. Yep.
because that's your average.
Yep.
So okay, this is my average. So this is how you can sell your corn off of, your beans off of, what kind of fertilizer, what kind of spray program.
Now, if you have seen historically different numbers, you may have your own set of numbers
Correct.
to set that off of. Maybe you're traditionally higher or traditionally lower. I mean,
Right.
that's a possibility too.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe you're now setting your own farm APH saying, well, my goal is not 175. I've been seeing 183 is what my consistency
My
may be.
APH is 183. Yes.
Whatever it be, right? And stuff. So you have different starting points for that. Okay.
Yep. And then, so you base your numbers off that. But what happens if you can? So now you're going to go to yield driven. Say, okay, if I get margin with 20 extra bushels, I'm going to spend more money to get that 20 bushels in a sense. I'm assuming this is where you're going with this.
Yeah.
okay.
Yes. Yeah. You're
So,
exactly right.
Okay. So with a margin, you're expecting 183 bottom line. And that's what your crop insurance is based off of. So you know for sure you're getting paid for 183. So now you try to build that margin up to say 205, 220, and you can start adding in fungicides, add an extra 10 bushels. Some sort of a seed treatment should add another 5 bushels. Anything, another pass for weeds. If you know there's one field that just has a ragweed problem, try to get those taken care of. That way the corn there or beans can pod more, can get bigger. And so then you start running your numbers a little bit different, but you know that your end result will be higher.
You can't put a number on the end result.
Correct.
That's way too many variables still impact
Because you still got weather,
that.
you still got
And maybe us negatively impacting that throughout the growing season. Right. So why don't you just grow in like 400 bushel corn like these guys are in Georgia? And what's the problem? Why don't you do that? And I'm playing the devil's advocate.
I know.
You know where I'm going with this here, right?
You've seen the graphs, you've seen the charts. Even with nitrogen, nitrogen is one of the biggest expenses a corn crop's going to have.
third largest expense we have, right?
Right.
As
It's
inputs.
probably somewhere right in there. Yeah.
You got
first
your
or third
land. You got your land.
Yeah.
You got your inputs as far as seed,
right.
stuff like that, and then you have your
Your
inputs
nitrogen.
on their nitrogen.
You could go put 400
Units again.
pounds of nitrogen on and get 350 bushel whatever, but it won't pay for itself.
Oh, so it doesn't necessarily mean that it pays. Okay.
Right. It used to be 2 for 1 basically, or 1 for 1. We're starting to find that around 0.7 to 1 bushel. So 0.7 units equals 1 bushel. I don't know what the difference why, or if just studies have gotten better through the years, but used to be if you want a 200 bushel crop, you put 200 units of nitrogen on. Now you can kind of bump that down to 180, 170, and you should still be able to get around that 200.
Yep. So just because I can grow 400 bushel corn, 300, put your number on it,
Right.
whatever it is, doesn't mean that put more money in my pocket at the end of the year.
Correct.
I played Monopoly and I spent more than I made.
Right. Now you're mortgaging
Essentially.
houses or hotels, all that kind of whatever,
Right. So going back to a yield or a margin driven, margin is equally, if not more important, to focus on throughout the growing year
Then
than
just
a
straight
yield
number.
than just a yield number. I don't want to participate in just a bushels per acre contest. Now, if my goal is to get out onto a speaking circuit and to get known, which is a lot of how these guys make a lot of money.
And they're only doing on like 1, maybe 2 acres.
Right.
They're not doing a whole
Right.
farm. They're just small plot.
Yeah, they're
See.
saying this is my farm. Well, no, this isn't your farm. This is your plot. This was your garden.
Right.
Is the so these numbers that are out there that you may hear, that is why I would say most people stay away from a yield driven a yield driven saying, I want this much out,
Right.
right? There is that, I say break even, or what do you call that? The economic threshold, where it doesn't make any more sense to raise 270 compared to 250. And I don't know what that number is.
Yeah, and it
It's
farm to
above
farm.
that. It's
Yeah,
above that
right.
normally.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, that is
Yeah.
completely correct. Yeah, those guys who are doing 400 bushel yield contests, it's on 1 acre, but they never show the numbers on how much it costs them to put that 1 acre out.
Right.
It always just has, we just broke the yield record.
Right.
It doesn't
right.
show. Yeah, some of them do show. Yeah, we put X amount of units of nitrogen. We did 3 passes. We did this. Whatever. But unless you actually know what those numbers are, it
Doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything.
So the amount of strategy that actually goes into that is actually very impressive.
Oh, it
Because
is.
having a previous, like an external view on farming, let's say someone from the city,
Let's not point fingers.
let's
Right,
not point
you
fingers,
know.
but you look at it and you're like, okay, these guys are just putting corn and soybeans in the ground, and then it's going to grow, and then they're going to harvest it.
No,
Like
and-
that's the most basic.
No, unfortunately, that's how people still approach beans to this day. I still feel like the majority of people will say, well, it's just beans.
We're just putting it out there just because we need another crop. Or
It's
we gotta
my
rotate.
off year.
Right.
And I get a kick out of this because I'm like, man, I wish I could have an off year as a business owner and be like, well, whatever it does, it does. I don't care. Every other year, focus on my one thing, right? I really think that there are huge advancements in ag will come within the soybean and other crops besides corn in the near future. And starting to manage those, saying, hey, beans, if we want to raise anything above 60, you're going to have to maybe put a pound of nitrogen with them as well. Like it's a 1-for-1, maybe it's a 2-for-1.
Yeah.
Right? But logistically, if we can't solve a manpower issue, beans, that makes so much more sense.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
can-
your yield's less anyway, so it takes less people to
But
grow.
your margin per acre may be more.
Could
If
be.
you can get above a certain point.
The other interesting thing about beans is almost every year you're making money on beans. You're kind of capped at the top end, where with corn, you may blow it out the water. I mean, you could really make money on corn. You can also lose money on corn. Beans seem to be the crop that's always a stable.
From an investment
income.
portfolio, that's more of your CD. That's more of the steady line type
5%
thing.
every year, whatever. You know what I mean? And yeah, your corn.
If you can figure out how to make them more, the 80, get consistent 80s, get 100 bushel beans,
yeah.
I think you would see a lot of operational change.
And even the
and
genetics
stuff.
on the beans are getting much better,
Yep.
which I think is attributed to some of this higher yield on these beans. I mean, yes, the fungicides, that type of stuff. but I
It
think-
wasn't that long ago. Look at our wheat. Look at the wheat and what we've done with wheat from a management standpoint. Right?
Yeah.
You used to want 50 bushel wheat?
Yeah, we didn't do wheat for years. We've done it the last 3 years now. And we were always thinking, okay, 50 bushels, right?
There you go.
And then the first year we did low 90s going,
Holy cow.
what is this?
Holy
Yeah,
cow.
like what are we supposed to do with this? You know what I mean? And then it's steadily been that 90 to 100. You got guys out there who might be getting over,
120.
well over one.
Yeah, I mean, I know a couple growers, average 120, and that's not on the 1 acre things. That's
Right. That's a true
that's
field.
sustainable. Yeah,
Right.
that's. But if you can now take that and say, okay, if I can put in a bean behind that, right? I just increased my margin. My margin driven versus I could raise 300 bushel corn, or I can raise 2 crops that make me more margin in the year.
Yeah, because even a crappy double crop's already paid for. With a 30 bushel double crop bean, you don't have to get that 40 to 50 bushel maybe. If you just get 30, you're back into making money on that second crop.
So I think that a business minded person, I think that there's a lot of yield focus used to be more. Now it's primarily just a winning contest.
There's more of that for
Right.
sure. Yeah.
But now I think we have transitioned management styles into a margin driven
right.
margin
And
driven
it depends
market.
on which farmer you are. Are you the young farmer who's just starting out? You're just trying to make your payments. Truthfully, that's what's driving you because you don't want to lose this thing.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who's been farming 30 years, land's paid off. He has more wiggle
He has
room
buffer.
to try extra things, to do extra things. Because he's already spent all that time scraping by. And he knows what works. But, hey, what if I could do something extra to set up the next generation to have more at the end, whatever, and maybe he doesn't have one come back and he just wants to play around with it,
Yep.
So when you started, I guess, getting into the management of the farming and everything, what kind of changes have you noticed within the past 10, 15 years? Something significant, I guess, that's different than what you kind of started out on.
And where does it go from here?
Obviously,
Second side of that.
when I started out, would have been 14 years ago now. Not knowing anything from anything, getting in the tractor and just going was my main focus, I guess. Mm-hmm. The tech has improved from where it was. I mean, there was auto steer back then, obviously. I don't know. Do you know if RTK was still around back then? Okay, but more of that has come online, I would say. There's more companies, obviously, providing that. So the technology is the biggest thing. I think that'll obviously be the continuance. Now, how much technology more do we really need? I don't know.
How much is too much?
Exactly. Because when we first started putting some of that precision stuff on there, it was just downforce. It was just, what we call now basic things. Now we got depth control, finding moisture
Right.
2 inches down. We got, the radars telling us
What's your
this.
thought process on that? Because I've had interesting conversations. You brought up like the automated depth control and stuff. From a grower standpoint, and maybe I have no idea. We've never had this conversation. So, what's your thought on that? If you can automate your depth, and you can set it within parameters, within a range, and say don't go any deeper than 2.5, and don't go anything shallower than 1.5 inches, possibly. Stay in that moisture band.
Right.
Right? What's your thoughts on that? And what derails that train?
Does it actually pay for itself? And that's always number one question for any farmer, for anything that you're going to do. Is this actually going to pay for itself? If I just have a steady 2 inches, which is what downforce.
What happens when it rains?
Exactly. I mean,
So my thought on it, like I go back to like we're trying to get steady emergence, right? And a corn crop is going to grow at so much per day, especially if it sprouts at the same time in the ground. That's what moisture in the ground causes it to do. It causes it to swell, causes it to sprout,
right.
right?
Heat and moisture. Yep.
Heat and moisture is what that does. So if all of a sudden I do not know all these parameters, and I will probably get quickly educated on this, right? But that's the biggest thing that I have a kickback on trying to put an inconsistent planting depth down there.
Right.
Right? Is, well, what happens when it rained 24 hours after we left the field?
Exactly.
Now the moisture is the same, and you have one that's an inch and a half that's going to be out of the ground quicker.
Right.
And by all of our studies, we need everything to pop out of the ground within 24 hours.
Right. Yeah, you've seen it. Like, I don't remember what the yield detriment is with an uneven stand, but
it is
it
there.
can almost ruin a crop.
It's
I won't say
significant.
ruin a crop, but it is.
It's significant.
Yeah.
So
It is.
too much tech can be,
You can overload it. Yeah.
you can overload,
You can
overcomplicate,
I mean,
Yeah.
in a
and you won't pay.
In a perfect year, I'm sure it probably pays for itself. But like you're saying, once you put too many variables in, it can't control the weather. And should you have been planting that crop 2 hours before the big rainfall anyways, maybe not, but maybe you just need to get finished up. Who knows? Yeah, I mean, that's another one of those.
The reality of it is it happens.
Right. I
And
mean,
you grab a gear to get it done.
Yeah, I finished beans last year, and almost a downpour. Probably shouldn't have been out there, but I had a half an acre left. I was like, I'm not coming back in 3 days to finish this half acre. Like, I just, and beans ended up being all right, but looking back on it, I should have been pulling out 2 hours earlier, knowing that the storm was coming. Just
Yeah.
you got the planning date, you want to get it done, you just
Get out of there and get it done.
So 3 days later, that's what our first thought is it'll just be 3 days. But in reality, it could be 2.5 weeks.
yeah, you could get another rainstorm coming through. You could get 2 weeks later.
And at that point, so yield, and I don't know the exact date, June 1st, yield continues to decrease, and I forget the percentage. Do you know the percentage?
I know after like May 21st on corn, it'll start.
It's on a sliding
And
scale.
then like with June 1st, it really starts dropping off. I don't remember
the potential,
top
your
end
overall potential, top end potential. So your starting point now saying
200, whatever.
200, maybe
now
that's
down to
now
160.
Yeah,
by June 5th or something like that. And that's why they have the crop insurance date to have it planted by June 10th or 12th, something like that, because
No
crop
way-
insurance
yeah.
isn't going to want to pay for your crappy corn.
For bad management decisions.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And the same thing's on beans. The same thing happens on beans. It's just a slide gate. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people that don't realize that those dates even exist, saying it doesn't. You can't just put it out there whenever you want. There is a too early and there is a too late.
Yeah.
Now we are pressing the early envelope more and
I
more
think
every
so,
year.
but I think it's because we've had good results with it.
When I think we got weeks like this where we're warmer, and stuff like that now. But
Not that I ever really paid attention, but I don't feel like there's many guys planning April 14th 15 years ago.
no,
I think
agree.
I think they were waiting for late April.
I think
to
I
start.
see a lot of April 10th. I think I see some early April saying, I'm going. I'm
If
going.
the ground conditions are good, weather
Ground
report
conditions
looks
are going.
good.
I'm going with beans,
Yeah.
100%. They may wait for the futures to look better on a corn because it's
Right.
a little more sensitive
It is.
and
yeah.
stuff like that. But the beans, I see a lot of early beans, and I personally see a lot of early beans do really good.
Yeah.
And that goes into if you're on a 30-inch, a 15-inch, what's your row spacing, what's your populations, all that type of stuff too.
And hopefully guys are changing up their population throughout the year, but maybe not. I don't know. That's
Right.
neither nor, I mean, I know what we do. We change it up, but that's not saying everyone does or needs to. I think it probably does help, but
Yeah.
So as a follow-up, where do you see the tech going in the future?
And farming in general.
Yeah, farming in general too.
You can take it on both sides.
farming in general,
So there's a lot of money trying to get into farming.
you got investment people
A lot of
coming
big
in,
money trying to get in.
buying land. So I think there's going to be more renters farming than there used to be in a general sense on big acres. Because like we were talking earlier, older generation is just dying off or getting out. I mean,
It's not worth the stress and the headache.
And if you don't have anyone coming in behind you, you're going to start selling that ground, especially when ground has been 15, 17, 20,000 an acre. If you're to that retirement stage, why wouldn't you sell out if you don't have another generation coming in behind you? And I don't blame them one bit for that.
Yep.
So and then you got the investment companies coming in to buy it, and you got this 1031 money coming in because housing additions are coming up on their farm ground. They got a lot of money from the housing addition coming to buy it. So now they're selling 200 acres
Reinvestment.
to buy 1,000 acres.
Yep.
So I think it's going to continue to get bigger per farmer. How many of the smaller farmers are they going to wipe out? Hopefully not that many. I don't know if it can be done. Hopefully the younger generation can somehow get in.
Yep.
I think geographically, through states and through different regions, you start getting into smaller patches, more wooded areas and stuff like that. You're going to see that adaptation or that swallow up of larger. That happens slower.
Right.
But you go back up, you go north of us and stuff, and I mean it's not uncommon to see 40, 50,000 acre growers,
Yeah.
to where, and I'm not saying that's the average,
No,
by any
but
means,
especially get out to Iowa,
right?
Illinois.
But
Yeah.
and I think you're correct. I think that there's a lot of big money, your Amazons, your Googles, your Walmarts, your stuff like that are wanting in this space because we hold the keys to the beginning of the food chain.
Correct. And
Essentially.
they're not making any more land either.
No, absolutely not.
That's a finite thing.
So if you can now, and everybody, this goes back to tracing it all the way back to the beginning of where the food started and stuff like that. If you can actually provide that, that's only going to become more and more important as we go forward. But if you can also tell that person what they're going to do, right now they can't tell that guy what he's going to do. They can try to incentivize, with maybe some basis or offer their own thing, with
Right, well, just
different
some sort of
types
package,
of crops.
whatever
Right.
it
Yeah.
is.
Yep.
But they can't ultimately say this is what you're going to do.
Right.
Now, the grower that maybe used to farm all this on his own, he now has relinquished risk. He may be getting actually just a salary a year,
Right.
right? He's just still going to do the same thing
He's
he's
still
always
doing the thing he
done,
loves, but don't have the risk with it.
but not have the risk of the crazy low year. Someone else that has a bigger checkbook can absorb that up, down, and he's just saying, hey, I'm okay with this possibly. I think I see, unfortunately, some models like that happening in the future. I may be wrong, and hopefully I am, but
Yeah, I can see that. and I don't know what stops that either.
I don't know if there's a way to.
I mean,
It's gonna be hard with the
thankfully
money.
we still live,
Pride and
right.
integrity. That's what's going to stop it in certain
Well, same
places.
thing with the windmills and all that
Exactly.
kind of stuff. I
Right.
mean, again, you have some of this government money coming in, investment money coming in. Can't stop a guy. That's why we live in my opinion, one of the best countries in the world, if not the best, because we have freedom to choose with what we own.
Yep.
So, and I'm not going to be mad at a guy who does sell out or does anything.
No,
It's his choice.
that's right. That's right.
You know?
you want to buy if you don't want it, step up and pay, or buy the ground or whatever it is, and say, hey, I'm willing to pay more and whatever it is. I mean, so
While I don't like windmills and solar farms, I'm not mad at the guy who does sell them.
right,
or
because
does-
understand the business,
Right.
understand the business aspect, and you don't want someone telling you what to or not to do with what you have.
Right.
As all of us, that's how everybody is. You know, we all want to tell someone else that they can't put a hog house next to us,
Right.
right? But we all love to eat bacon. So, and I don't want mine grown
I
in
know
a
I
petri
do.
dish.
I know I do. Yeah. I don't want the cockroach bacon or the
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
Yeah, the plant based whatever. I mean, obviously I think it's been shown the whole plant based thing isn't going to take off. Now that's not to say in 20 years someone doesn't come back around. I mean, that's how some of this stuff works. They just kind of put something out sometimes and it fails, but then in 15, 20 years it gets rehashed.
It may just
and
be
then
way ahead of its time,
right.
type thing.
And I hope not.
Right.
But hey, if someone likes the Impossible Burger, good for you. Or whatever. I mean, again, it's your personal choice.
And you live in America, you get that choice.
Right.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Looks at the camera. You're welcome.
Right.
So-
I don't. I mean, so that's the other part of this. A younger farmer who is smaller, I think they are probably going to start diversifying on what they're raising more than what you used to have to. It used to just be corn, soybeans, maybe some wheat. Guys now might try to do an acre of pumpkins, an acre of melons, an acre of this because the cash flow is better, and need that.
Do you see that coming back into a livestock scenario? See, everybody used to, what happened is you started with a whole bunch of individual little growers, and they all have their chickens, their cows, their pigs and stuff like that, right?
All free range.
And then it kind of went away and stuff. Now I think that there's revenue for freezer beefs, for, just straight grass-fed. Like, I think there's a market there that people are starting to capture back and say, well, I got, 10 head of cattle that I'm still at on the pasture and stuff. It's not going to be like mainstream.
Right.
I don't think that's going to take over, but I think that there is that, small niche that people can put that work into.
Right.
To sell the eggs, sell the
If
freezer
someone
beef,
wants to
what
put
it
the
is.
work into it, because it's a lot of work to do that. And it's a niche market, but I think it has its place. And I think one thing the pandemic showed us was big factory gets shut down. You're
How
not
re-
getting food.
Oh yeah, how
And I think some of
how
these guys-
reliant we are on so many other sources, and it's like,
Right.
oh,
I think
it's an eye opener for some.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think there's a niche market. I think it can be done. I don't think it'll take off widespread.
Right.
But I think ag communities will probably have more of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I hope so, because I think that is kind of a cool, good thing to do. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So kind of off topic. Ben McCoy was begging me to ask this question, and this is a quote from him. But besides being damn good looking, is Ben McCoy good at golf?
So I've played golf with Ben.
He has his moments of, wow, where did that come from?
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially that 80-yard shot. He'd stick it right in the middle of the green. 95% of the round, though, is him throwing clubs, being mad. It's just in a bad mood because
Or talking the smack.
right, but never following up with it. Like, never. I play golf league with him on Wednesdays, so every Wednesday I get to see his shenanigans. He's gotten better through the years, but no, he's not a good golfer. Yeah.
Don't quit your day job.
And honestly, I'm not good either.
No,
But
no, me
I
neither.
remember when we went out that one time playing with him, and
was this the worst ball round?
yes, and his frustration was just comical. I mean, it was.
So
it was,
have you so I don't know, have you heard about us playing worst ball? So
No,
you've
I've
played
not.
a best ball
Right, that's
round,
common,
right?
right? Yeah.
We went out. I don't know what it was, a Wednesday something. Normally, if we go out, it'd be a Wednesday morning. We decided we were going to play worst ball. Partner up, no matter what, you had to play the worst ball of the two people, right? Oh wow, that guy about cried.
Ben was my partner, right? And,
First he about
Whose shot did you use more of then? Yours or his?
we had to use Ben's because
Yours was in the woods.
mine was so
no, we still had to play the woods.
okay.
I'd tee off and I sliced it into the beans or something on the right side, and Ben's like, man, he gets up there and he didn't say, oh man. I mean, there's some other words in
Right.
there too, but absolutely, he just has to forcefully shank it to the left to make it worse than the already awful shot that I have, but to still be in play.
Right.
So that's kind of how it all started, and then he hit a really long putt, and I told him, "Hey Ben, we can't use that putt."
Yeah, he
And
was
he's
all
like,
pumped.
he's like,
oh man,
he's like, I know.
you want a good time. Just laughing, and I mean, I got hit in the head with a golf ball.
You did get it
I
with a golf
smoked
ball.
in the head with a
Did
golf
you
ball.
standing in the way or just free?
I don't. No, I was not in the way.
Your brother forgot to yell.
I should not have been in play, but I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the worst ball, and it went off the top of my head and went into the woods, and they had to play it because that was their worst ball. It
Did you
was.
see Travis holding his head? I'm like, what, did you hit him? Dusty's like, I think I just hit him in the head.
It's probably payback for something growing up.
Something.
sure it was.
You know?
Something.
Yeah,
Sure
he
it
did it
was.
on purpose. You know?
But you want to see something. You want to see a different flipping strategy. Play a worst ball around.
Oh my gosh. That is,
Don't plan on getting out of there very fast, but even
I
just
think
2
I
or
might
3
try that on
holes.
Saturday.
Yeah,
You
about
know,
2 or
never
3
really thought about
holes.
that. Yep.
Oh, it's fun.
It is
It's
fun.
fun.
But you're a really good group of guys.
Oh,
whatever,
yeah.
You know what I mean? You're just having fun anyways.
Say hi, boys. We're changing it up on this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
no.
So you guys are big in the tech. So where do you see it? Because you probably have a bigger insight into where the stuff's going.
I think so. Autonomy gets talked about a lot, and will it play a role in our space and stuff like that? My answer is yes. We're already using autonomy. If you look at our sprayers, that's fully autonomous
Right.
spraying. I mean, you still have the interaction, and you still set the boundaries, and the parameters on what it can and can't do. But it is going out there and it's doing its job, within what we're telling it to do. I think that you're going to see that introduced into our market at a more reliable and usable rate, and I think you're going to see service providers bringing that to the farm. So instead of maybe you looking at buying a $370,000 corn planter, right? Saying, what's it? Maybe I have a fleet of 2 rows
Right.
or something like that. What's it going to cost me to have you come plant with all the technology, all the fancy gadgets on the back? What's it going to cost me to come put this out? And it's a business decision. You may love planting corn, but you're like, my margin is better.
You're making
It's a
more money by
business decision saying, I'm going to have them come put it in the ground. I think there will be that pickup on it at some point. I'm excited about it. Personally, I want to be a big provider, a big service provider of it, a big push for it.
Right.
Not that we're trying to replace. You cannot replace quality people.
right.
And you never will. You're not going to take Scott. You're not going to take you and say, "Hey, sorry, you're out of a job." No, guess what? You just got reallocated to different stuff.
Right. You learn this part of it. Something
Right.
like that. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And it may not be coming into planting. Maybe it is just into tillage passes or something like that. Right.
Right.
Maybe it's something that I don't want to say it's a less skilled position can do. Than someone that's having to pay attention to a corn planter, you're paying attention to a tillage tool. As generally speaking, once you keep that thing from porpoising through the field,
Right.
and it's doing a good job, it can monitor and it can go. So with AI and the learning ability
So
of
you
cameras,
think these companies that are buying this ground will be the first adopters of that because then they don't have to pay.
you're still going to have somebody sit on the edge of the field managing it. I just don't think
That's
we're going to
true.
have, and I think that may be what they have to, maybe they provide somebody, maybe.
Yeah, I'm just thinking you're trying to tie everything together. You got
You're right.
guys buying big acres.
You're right.
Is that going to be the big adopter? It's not going to be the guy who's been farming 25 years.
Probably not going to be a guy that's farming 25 years or, closer to retirement or something like that. It's going to be the providers that, there's custom growers of pigs now, right? I mean,
Right.
your livestock, that I think you're going to see a transition in the market to where it's a custom growers of crops.
Right.
And I think that's going to be some of the space.
Okay.
So, but I think you'll see it quicker, and we already have it probably in the high value crops, where you grow strawberries and maybe your labor force doesn't show up and you lose $2 million a day because your berries are now done.
Right. Bugs got to them. Something
Overripe,
overripe,
done,
yep,
whatever it
falling off,
is, right?
all that
So
kind of stuff. Yeah.
I think you see that is a huge aspect where
Well, we
you're going
got
to
plenty
see.
of stuff coming from the southern border, so we should have good enough labor market there.
You think?
Yeah.
You'd think I'd love to get in that conversation.
I
with
know
you.
you
And
would.
I'll even film it and air it, people.
Yeah. Well, I
We'll
think
be.
the
We'll have
labor
you
pool-
back in on that one
That could take up a whole episode.
Yeah.
or two.
Yeah.
So, but no, I do think that you're going to see some of that. I'm excited to see where that goes, though. I would like to see us lighten our footprint on the ground. I think we are degrading our crops, degrading our potential in the field with compaction, and trying to cover more with less. We've been compensating that since we've had horses, right?
Yeah, been tilling it under, been doing all that kind of stuff. So do you think the regenerative ag part of it really is coming back to stay? Or do you think it's a fad? Cover crops and maybe not the regenerative side where you have all the animals and stuff, but at least the cover crop side. Because I think there's some benefit to it.
I think that you have. There's people that they're going to exist on both sides. You have the people that participate because of the programs providing it and telling you to participate, right? And then you have the people that say, "I believe in it and I want to do it."
Right.
Right?
And that's
And they're
kinda
going to
where
do it,
I'm at.
and they're going to do it regardless if that payment is there or not.
Right.
Right? Now, it does figure into their margin on their aspect into what they put out there or how they do it, right? Some people just say, man, I can get, and I don't know numbers, I can get $13 an acre to put a cover crop out there, right?
At 15 pounds of wheat per acre, something
Right.
like that. So they're only putting on 15 pounds of wheat,
Right.
which isn't really doing anything for
Right.
the ground except for
And
a
they're
little bit of stuff.
and they're putting it out maybe end of November
right.
or
Just,
whenever it
just
is.
to get the box checked.
Check in a box, right?
Right.
But you have people that understand it and say, I do get this and I do value this, and they're trying to find the best timing and placement methods of those crops. So I think that you're still going to have both sides of it. But if funding goes away, you will see one side fall off. Right.
That makes sense.
And it's the same thing when we took a trip over to Europe here just recently, and their ag is heavily regulated.
They have a limit on how many acres they can plant per crop.
Picture our tobacco market,
Really?
right?
Literally,
Where saying
yeah.
you can only produce this much, like you can only have this many acres put out that year, right? The same thing is going on, and they can only have a 35 acre field. And I'm gonna say acre; it's a hectare field, not an acre,
Right.
which is 75-ish
Around that,
or
yeah.
something
So
like
it's
that.
2 to 1 in a sense.
Yep.
Yeah, about 2.5 to 1, close to. But they have to put fences back up. They have to put tree lines back in.
The hedgerows and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they're making them go back to doing a lot of that type of stuff. There's a Green 24 initiative that Europe is really driving on, and it makes sense at the top level, like many programs do. But when you break it down to the people that it affects and
The people actually do
Actually
it.
farmer.
doing it,
Yep.
it doesn't make any sense, and it's actually worse than,
Really.
yeah.
So what is their reasoning for this? Because I know over there, I mean, obviously the land space isn't as big to begin with.
Right.
Is that part of it? Or is there actually a study that says, hey, the
I think it's
ecology
the
of-
carbon. So carbon is
okay.
huge driving it. I know.
okay.
That's a huge driving aspect of it. They're making them so they were no-till for a very, very long time, and we're talking about countries that were in existence well before we even
the
thought
USA
about
was
it. Right?
right.
Yeah, I mean, these people's. Huge knowledge from way back, and saying this goes through cycles is what it is, right? We are somewhere in this cycle with our own ag economy,
Right.
right? They are probably further down that cycle because they've been doing it for generations longer than us.
Right.
Right? They went and they started flipping and turning dirt back to moldboard plowing. I mean, it was crazy how much moldboard and complete rolling of the ground over was, and stuff like that. They went back to a lot of that because they also got beat up on chemical usages and stuff like that, trying to control
The weeds.
and
right.
stuff like that, right? Well, now they're not allowed to do that anymore. Now they're having to shove back into a no-till or a cover crop scenario, and stuff like that. But a lot of their decisions are based off of government subsidies, they were saying.
Okay.
Over there
Again,
and
checking
stuff.
those boxes in a sense.
If I can put this out, if it costs me $15 an acre, I'm sorry, if I get $15 an acre, but it only cost me $13, I can buy a piece of equipment and make profit of $2 an acre, essentially,
Right.
by doing that.
Yeah.
They don't care the result. They're not investing
yeah,
into that scenario. I'm not saying everybody's like that by any means, but it is a very it's unique. It's kind of cool over there. So it's
That is
really
interesting. I knew they were always smaller.
yeah. And we were in
farms in a sense,
Czech Republic is where we went to.
Okay.
We went to Bednar Implements and Agro-Eco Power is where we went to see. And
Yeah.
very, very,
A
very
lot of interesting stuff over there.
Yeah.
I'd imagine.
A lot of interesting.
That would be a cool
Nothing
trip.
can be wider than 3 meters, which is like 9.8 feet.
Yeah.
So
Really?
Yeah.
60-foot
Is it
tillage
because of
tools.
the roads? Like, you can't even
Yep.
get down the roads.
There
Can't
were
get through
some
the
roads
villages.
Travis's truck probably wouldn't have made it down.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's how narrow it was.
You couldn't park your pickup truck. You couldn't have
on the
drove
side
around
street
on
or
some-
anything
no.
like that.
No.
It's still bicycles.
So yeah, but I mean, you have X9. We saw some X9 deer combines. I've never seen them so narrow because they can't be any wider. If you think about that, it can be
Right.
wider.
So they have to narrow everything up, and it's just. So how many different kind of crops do they grow over there compared to just here it's corn, soybeans, wheat.
Oh
in a
wow.
sense.
I can't. I guess I'd be mislabeling if I could actually name them all. We saw the corn. You see some. There wasn't many soybeans.
No,
from
not a
what
lot of
we had saw.
soybeans. There was another. I don't know what that one plant was that they kept pointing out.
Is there like the
we're
barley,
on
the wheats, that type of stuff?
So
over there?
wheat in Poland, it's more. You get into
More prevalent there.
like in Ukraine, I think. Where we were at, they didn't have too much wheat production.
I'm blanking on the names right now, but
Yeah, it was more like I'm kind of blanking on them too. There were some melons. There were some.
anyways, it was. I mean, it was different than here.
Yeah,
That's
but
for
that's what I
sure.
was wondering.
Yeah,
We have our 3 staples in a sense. I don't
In
know if they
this
had 3
area,
different
right.
Yeah.
staples or something like that.
They don't because a lot of the growing farmers they have to start pushing more variety because they
Because
can't
of
just
all
say
these
I can put out
rules.
more acres
Right.
of that crop.
So they're trying to get more crops in a year in a sense.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
So and do it with hopefully cover it with the same equipment that they already have per
Right.
se. Right.
Yeah, not have to buy 10 different
So,
pieces
right.
of equipment for planting.
A lot of seed bed, like a lot of seed bed preparers, like really small grain crops where they may have to have a super fine prepared seed bed
Okay.
and stuff. That's what
Yeah.
and stuff. So, but yeah, it was really neat. There's a lot
No,
of
that
history there.
would be pretty cool to see.
So I like traveling anywhere. That was just the opportunity we had presented to us. That's why we went over there and stuff. But I like doing that, even across the U.S. Going to different places. We went to Michigan, been all over, and it's like, man, opening our eyes to different
different
things in
areas.
life.
Yeah.
I think, especially in the U.S., we have such a small-minded of our area.
Yeah.
With how even in the U.S. The U.S. is so huge that you don't even realize what
Yeah.
Oklahoma's doing,
Yeah.
Michigan's doing, Florida's doing.
How do you grow? How do you grow cotton?
Ukraine,
How do you grow
whatever.
peanuts?
Right.
I don't have a clue. I mean,
I'd
I've
love to
never
see
seen
it. Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Right.
So, but yeah, it's so neat. Yeah. So, but well, I'll tell you what, guys. I think I'm about wrapped up here. You guys got anything else, Kevin? Did you?
I can't think of anything top of my head.
And I
that,
appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you
this
for
was fun.
coming.
I
That
enjoyed
was-
this. Hopefully, turns out all right.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it did. You did a good job. So,
Thank you.
well, thank you guys for watching, and hopefully stay tuned for some more episodes.